Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Justin Young from HoopSeen.com. Welcome to the Fast Break. I want to try something new today on our YouTube channel. I want to really kind of help the education process and the recruiting process for high school seniors. We know that the game continually changes. The evolution of the sport always changes, and I want to kind of tap into somebody that knows it very, very, very well, and that's a good friend of mine, Cory Baldwin, the head coach of South Georgia State. Cory, what's up, man?
Yeah, glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
I know. I'm excited to have you on. I feel like we've got to really set the table. Full disclosure is that we're basically brothers. That's how long we've known each other. You recruited my brother out of high school. He played for you at Clayton State, and then we've known each other. We've shared many Final Four trips together. We are essentially blood without being blood, and I want to be really transparent with that. So that may yield. A reason I set that table up, that may yield for more dialogue and inside jokes that you and I only get, and then we'll laugh at. And everybody else is like, these two morons, I don't know what they're talking about. But
we can be mean to each other, and it's all love.
That's it, man. That's totally it. That's absolutely what it is. So, but notwithstanding, you're also a big time coach that's had a ton of success. This is now your 14th season down there in Waycross at South Georgia State. You guys just came back from Hutch for the junior college tournament out there. You guys were 26-8 this past year. The thing that impresses me the most is not even so much the amount of wins that you have, which you have plenty. I think you've averaged something like 23 wins a year in your coaching career. But here are numbers. I think this is what I want to kind of set the stage. And if parents, if you're watching, or travel coaches, or even players, Cory and his staff, they've been a part of sending 98 players to four-year schools and counting this year with your roster out of South Georgia State, and 117 players that have gone on to a four-year school. And then on top of that, you've got a coaching tree that's pretty outstanding. It reaches the NBA. For some schmuck that works for the Suns, I don't know who that is, all the way down to the high school level across the country. So certainly accomplished. I definitely want to set the table. But Cory, I thought your background was perfect for the conversation that I want to talk about, because I do want to have conversations with college coaches to let parents and players and travel coaches, high school coaches understand your point of view and where you're coming from as you're kind of building your roster every single year. And I think that really is a conversation I want to have. But before we get into that, I want to kind of dispel something real quick when it comes to junior college basketball. And I've seen this before, and I've had conversations, I know you definitely have, that, oh, he's good enough to go play for you at the junior college. Kind of like just a throwaway comment. How competitive, can you best describe how competitive it is at the junior college level in a quick but straight to the point answer?
Well, I think it's really kind of the G League of Division I.
Yeah.
And, probably every game we play, there's going to be, including our team and the team we're playing, 4+ Division I players on the floor at all times. And then the other players are sprinkled in are Division II NAI future players.
Yeah.
So you constantly have a quote, quote, minor league system set up of guys that are going to play. And with the COVID year and the portal, without jumping subjects that we'll go to, it's made it to where the level has increased a little bit and the ages have increased a little bit. So it's made it even more competitive here in the last couple of years.
Like the best way I've always told this to parents, listen, if you're not playing, if you're not even starting, if you're not being like a real physical contributor to your high school team, junior college is going to be really difficult for you. Like it's really hard to play at that level, because also on top of that, to your point with that, and this is my point of view, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there seems to be a different kind of hunger for a player that's playing at a junior college than there is maybe a lot of other places where there's a lot more to prove. There's a lot of guys with the right chip on their shoulder saying, man, I got to prove to people that I'm better than this, or I want to have a situation when I leave here that's really, really good. And so that motivation really does lend to some unbelievable basketball at the junior college level.
Well, so many guys that are trying to get to that next spot. And some of them have gambled on themselves and turned down a lower level Division I or a high level Division II to try to up their ante. So they're really playing with house, they're playing with their money, not house money. And then some people didn't make it for one area. Maybe it was, you got to get stronger, you got to get faster, you got to shoot it better, or maybe it was your grades, or maybe it was you got in trouble one time in 10th grade and no one will seem to look past it. And you're here trying to prove not only are you a quote, quote, better player, but maybe a better person, better student, whatever it may be. And you're hoping to turn that into, a higher level.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about how, from your point of view as a head coach at the junior college level, help people understand what a scholarship looks like at that level. Okay. So like, I think there's this belief that every school just has like these scholarships, like they're, like these pieces of paper and you get one. But like from a junior college level, it doesn't necessarily work that way, right? Can you explain a little bit about how you work with your scholarships and what you offer to players? I mean, there's a full ride, no doubt about it, but you've got to be a little bit more budgetary in your decision making, right?
Correct. It's, a lot of people say it's a piece of the pie, and you'll have a certain amount of dollars, and you'll take those dollars and have to make a team with it. And you may find a kid that you want, but he may have some money because of his grades being good, or maybe financial aid package or whatever that'll help him. So now you don't have to give him the full amount, which will help you get another player. So you're constantly doing the Billy Beanball.
Sure.
You're trying to get the best for your dollar. You're not trying to screw any kids out of it, obviously, but at the same time, if they're getting money from somewhere, you're trying to use it with the money you got to get them as close to zero as you can. There are a few programs out there. They're a minority in junior college, but there are some where they do have kind of what you were saying, some of that monopoly money, and they have 10 or 12 or 14 fulls. You can have up to 15 in junior college, which is actually more than Division I. But those are not as common as the places like where I'm at, where you're trying to, use the pie, like I said. You're cutting it up and trying to get everybody close to zero of your main 8 or 9 guys, and then you're hopefully, with that, have a little left over to sprinkle across. Some guys have requirements in state, some guys don't. It all varies down here because we're right on the Georgia-Florida line. Sounds like a country band, but we're right there, and we can get some Florida kids, and they count as in state. So that helps us. And in my time here, I was always in Atlanta. Second, sorry, the do not disturb didn't work, but I was an Atlanta recruiter basically, and now I've turned myself probably a little more into a Florida, Georgia line recruiter.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, when you're building, and you talked about kind of like a piece of the pie, again, there's this misnomer like, oh, well, if you don't have good grades, just go to junior college. I know from experience and talking to you in the last 14 or 17 years that you want guys that have like a 3.5, like really good grades, because how much of a benefit does that help the student athlete to have a really good academic background from a financial standpoint? How much do you include that into building?
Unbelievable. It helps the individual at the junior college. It helps the junior college, being able to use more money from other areas, but it also helps that individual getting recruited again.
Yeah.
Because now they can check that box. Most people that recruit have boxes that they're looking at, for their school. And sometimes it might be things like we're saying, you got to be in a certain region. Sometimes it might be GPAs. Sometimes it might be whatever. But if you're a guy coming from junior college, hey, I'm a high school qualifier. I could have went Division I or Division II if I would have chose, or if I would have had the right offer. But I'm going junior college to get better as a player. But I got the grade part. Or I'm going to junior college to get bigger and stronger and play against older men, and get used to it. A lot of guys say this, and I think it's be good for parents to hear. This is kind of a coaching talk here. But I hear a lot of guys in D2 and NAI especially make the comment of, we want to recruit guys that have kids with bedtimes, not they have bedtimes of their own. And there's some truth to that. You're getting a lot of older kids now because of the whole COVID year and graduate years and all those things that are going on out there.
That's interesting. So I want to, there's a lot to kind of dissect from there. I like I want to talk about the term older kids. Mm-hmm. I want to put that on my paper here to go back to that. But I do want to just kind of ask you, like, if I say, define what a scholarship offer is from South Georgia State, but then also to kind of generalize that from a junior college, like, how would you define, if you're going to a parent or a player and say, hey, we're offering you a scholarship, how do you define that? What is a scholarship offer really from your point of view?
I mean, I hate to answer it because I'm going to sound like a politician, but it's the honest answer. And that is, I think it varies for every kid that we would offer ourselves. And then every place varies a little bit. I don't think it's as concrete as a Division I and probably not even a Division II offer. I think there would be some where we're getting that kid to zero, and there would be some where, hey, you're going to have to pay a little bit each semester, or may even go into you're using your financial aid, you're not getting any back, or, hey, you might have to take out a little bit of a loan. I mean, there's different ones, and we try to really explain it because we don't want a kid to come here and I thought I was getting this.
Yeah.
We try to really show it and break it down, and I'm sure most places are similar. They're dealing with that.
from a parent standpoint, what kind of questions can parents ask of understanding that, right? Like there's not like a gotcha moment, like, oh, I have no idea that I've got to pay, X amount, or like what kind of questions can they bring to the table to a coach to really kind of learn more?
I think if you're green to it and it's your first kid and you wasn't a college player and you don't understand the whole college scholarship package, I think you got to ask questions like, what would we pay out of pocket? What are you paying out of pocket? How much does it cost to go there, and what are you covering? For those that know it a little more and they know like, hey, I'm getting Pell, which is financial aid. Am I receiving any of that back, or is that going to go towards paying for the school with what you're giving us?
Yeah.
And I think those are good questions to ask. A lot of people throw the term out, here's your scholarship, you won't pay nothing. But that's not a full scholarship, because you might be using other monies that you're receiving, whether it's financial aid or whatever. So really, you're not getting a full scholarship. You're not paying anything, and that is true, and that's a good thing, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. But that's not a quote full scholarship either. And I think sometimes those are things parents got to ask. Also, I think anytime you see someone post out there, hey, this is a full scholarship, that's a red flag already. Like, let's talk about it. What is a full scholarship? Is it meals?
And that's
is it housing? I think those are things you got to ask. Does that mean the full scholarship for the schooling, the books, housing, meals? What are we talking about? Because again, I think that term can mean a lot of different things.
I like that a lot. I want to kind of bookmark that, right? Like if you're a parent, you're watching this, ask that question. How would you define, coach? And again, to your point, every school is different. How would you define what a full scholarship is, and break that down for me, right? To your point, it's all about the pie. Well, maybe 70% of the pie is from athletics, and 15 is from academics, and another 15 is from, some sort of scholarship fund that maybe the student applied for. So I think that is a really important question to kind of dive into that. Let me ask you, it's interesting now because the recruiting calendar has changed so much, right? At every single level. And now we're seeing guys make decisions even in August, right? Like even 2 weeks before school gets started. Crazy. And they're enrolling in a school. And so for you, like, from your point of view, what's the most critical thing a family should know if you're an unsigned senior right now? Going into April, the live periods are coming up. I know a lot of guys are going to be playing with travel teams in the live period, which I'm all for. I think it's great. Go do that. But like, what's like any piece of advice or from your point of view, or how much do you guys watch players in the month of April? Like if you're a parent, maybe put them at ease, or like help them understand like really what the next couple months can look like from your point of view as a college coach.
There was a time where junior college, NAI, and Division II were later, and they would do a lot of recruiting for the next year at the end of the year that just finished. And Division I was always known as a year ahead of you.
Yeah.
That's probably not the case anymore. Not to say that it still doesn't occur. There's always different, examples that can go that way. But now, because of the transfer portal, they have portal day, which whoever thought that would have been a term. So now, what is it? March 13th is portal day. Okay, yeah. So now on March 13th to May 1st, a lot of Division I, Division IIs, NAIs, JUCOs are all going to swim in the portal and try to find that one or two scholarship that they need for the very next year. So that interferes a lot with the recruiters that used to be a year ahead of time. So now their April that used to be spent looking for a year ahead for some programs, again, not all, but it's hurt some of them where they may not even use that time anymore for that, or they may only send one guy on the road to opposed to 3 or 4, and because they're doing visits. And they got to be there because they're trying to sign a transfer from Baylor, a transfer from, NC State, whatever. They got to all be there working that one out, and getting that one done, and being there for the meals and everything else, and showing them all the things they can offer with every assistant and every head coach, which means you can't have people out on the road watching a gonna be senior or a gonna be 11th grader, which is what you used to do. So that's changed it some. I also think, like, we see it on both point of views in junior college. I'm recruiting kids and I'm getting kids recruited.
Yeah.
So there was a time, like right now, we have a kid that's a can't miss All-American. He's player of the year in the league. He was, player of the tournament. So, man, that's a no-brainer. In a normal year, he would already probably be ready to sign here in the next couple of weeks. Right now, he's kind of just getting recruited. So it's almost moved him back almost 2 months. And, and even some schools have told them, we'll revisit and we may offer you after May 1st. And I mean, you got to decide, is that a gamble you want to take? And I think those are the things that parents when you have offers on the table now, whereas
Yeah.
the old days you would lobby that into more offers, and you would collect offers almost until you got the one you wanted. That's dangerous now. I think you got to be careful, and I've seen it hurt some kids trying to do it, and sometimes it still can help you, but you're gambling more than you used to be for sure.
Yeah. So if you have what you're saying, if I'm hearing this right, if you have an offer, strongly consider it whatever level that it is, and really like consider it. And to me, I do think that puts an onus too. And I feel like this is the case because I feel like maybe 10 years ago, like I used to joke that everyone's been offered by everybody. and like there's just offers flying around like it was Halloween night. Where now I feel like if you're a coach, if you offer a scholarship or whatever that looks like, right, at any level, are you also willing to take the commitment or signing of that player in that moment? And I think that also from a parental point of view, or on the other side, I would hope that would be the case, that if that's offered, can I claim that right now in the moment and say, okay, well, cool, I want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think parents, if it's something you're interested in, you should ask them, hey, what are you offering? And is it a real offer? If we accept it, are we done right now? Is this something that, we're going to put a commitment to, a real commitment, not just some, Instagram post like this?
Give me an idea of what a timeline looks like for you on, you did bring up a great point. You are trying to add to your roster, build your roster for next year, but you're also trying to help your players move on to a 4-year school. So for you, like, what does April and May look like from your point of view as a junior college head coach?
For me, I would say it's the most stressful time. The season's probably easy, which is,
How about that?
Yeah, the April and May, and it's slowly starting to get into mid-June now, where you're constantly working the phone lines where for your guys as well to move on. And what happens is, if a parent, is listening and they're hearing, well, they can make calls. Sometimes their calls won't be the same, but a college coach, even though it's a junior college coach, calling another college coach has a little bit more validity. And sometimes they'll listen to it. Doesn't mean they'll recruit my guy, but they'll at least take my call or read the text or the email that I send. And you constantly, I mean, honestly, since we got back from Hutch last Thursday, I probably sent, I don't think I'd be lying, 500 separate texts to different guys about different players that we have. And, hey, is this a guy you're interested in?
Sure.
And you're kind of almost brokering for them and trying to be an agent for them almost. And, it only takes one or two to, hey, yeah, that is what we're looking for. I didn't realize he would, because so many things get said, I didn't realize he was still available. I didn't realize, he would come to this level or whatever it may be. And then you hope that's where the kid wants to go.
Have you ever had an instance where, and I'm not saying this as a joke, like I'm like genuinely curious, where you help one of your players go on to a 4-year school and that 4-year school sends a player back down to you, that maybe like as a freshman that wanted to transfer to a junior college? You ever done a roster swap?
Yes, we actually have.
Have you really?
Yeah. And it probably one of our best players we ever had was in an exchange. They took a kid late. It wasn't a trade per se, but it was like, hey, we really like the way you handled helping us with this kid. We got another kid that we just don't really have a spot for right now, but we were gonna offer him. And you kind of roll your eyes when you hear it because you just wonder, are they trying to dump some trash? But then when I looked at it, I was like, whoa, yeah, we're all in. Let's go.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it definitely goes that way. And, coaches talk, that's why you can have this podcast. We'll never stop if you let us. And a lot of times if you help a guy, they'll help you. And if maybe when they're not even trying to help you, they might tell you about 10 guys, just running their mouth, just talking.
Sure. Well, we talked about you helping your guys on your roster now move on to a 4-year school. What about for you looking at the high school kids or adding to your roster for next season, right? You're like junior college. I mean, you're on average, I would think, what are you trying to fill? Maybe 7-8 roster spots every single season?
Normally it used to be we've tried to balance our classes real hard here. I think that's a good thing to do. So we were always about 6 or 7.
Okay.
But in the last 2 years, we've redshirted some guys and taught them into coming and, either taking out a loan or paying their own way for a year, practicing and not being on the roster, but practicing and not traveling, but being with the team with every aspect except games. And because of that, now it's kind of cut that in half. So now we're only about 3 to 5 guys each year. So it's lessened it. And then now again, we're like everybody else. We get more transfer calls than we've ever had before. And what happens now, so many people falsely enter the portal. In other words,
Yeah,
they probably shouldn't have entered it. So they enter it, and now they realize, like, whoa, I'm not going to go higher. I mean, I saw the one kid from Brown go to UNC, so I thought I could. But now all of a sudden I'm getting 0 calls, and I can't go back. So now I'm, or I'm not asked back. So now I'm going to have to – I want to still go Division I, so they're going to call JUCO usually because now they can go down and back up, So we get a lot of those calls now, which are crazy. I did not get a lot of those 5 years ago, and now all of a sudden, I mean, I have to filter through them every day almost.
Sure. Well, all I hear now, hearing that, if I'm an 18-year-old kid and I'm an unsigned senior, I just finished my senior year, I got a couple interests. I don't even know if I'm even on a recruiting board anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to be nervous? What's my move if I'm an 18-year-old kid? If a junior college that used to recruit 7 kids a year now has to recruit 3 kids a year, and of those 3 or 4, you may be taking a transfer down from a 4-year school down to a junior college. So now you may only recruit 1 or 2 guys from high school. Should I be paranoid?
A little bit. I hate to be the bearer of bad news here. I'm the bad guy all of a sudden, but yeah, I mean,
No, you're not the bad guy. I mean, that's just the reality of it's a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
And so, what kind of piece of advice? And this is where I really do want to try to help. And I know that we'll get you back. There we go.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just think it's almost like being a quarterback. There's very few quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so many people, and a lot of quarterbacks get recruited and end up playing other positions. And even the best ones are usually backups for a little bit in college. I think that's kind of where basketball's gotten because there's only 5 that can play at a time. You might have a roster where you play 8 to 10, but more than likely no more than 10. San Diego State's playing 10, so you see that happens. But that's 1 out of 68 teams in a tournament. Doesn't happen a lot. So now you've got to start looking at it. And then I also think if you can get on a roster, sometimes it's better to stay on a roster. I know that I might be the only one saying that, and I'm not saying that to say not have a voice and not transfer. I don't mean that, but I do think sometimes a returner is more valuable than a transfer or a new guy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
I think it's kind of the old adage, it's easier to get a job when you have a job. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that. So, okay. So to that end, again, what I'm just trying to do is really help, our customer base are high school players, right? And we're always trying to help them move on to the next level and whenever we can. So to that end, and I've always said this, what thing can you do as a freshman that allows you to help a team, that gives value? That's always my main thing. Are you a shooter? Are you a rebounder? Do you understand pick and roll defense? What's your thing? Is that a sound piece of advice? I mean, like for you as a freshman, as you have a freshman on your team, I know you've got you may have a 23-year-old guy on your team. You know what? That guy's a grown man and he can handle this type of thing versus an 18-year-old kid that just got done playing in front of 50 people. How can that guy be on the floor?
Well, I hate to be a topper, but we actually have a 25-year-old on our roster. Okay. And I mean, that's crazy, but it's just the whole thing's changed. But you're right. For a high school kid listening to this, I think there's a couple of things you got to really be honest with yourself, number one. And then you've going to have to get out there in front of people. And if you're not trying to be seen, you may go somewhere where nobody's at, and that was your chance. Then you need to find another one. Or you may go somewhere where only 4 coaches were there and 3 of them didn't talk to you. Then you need to go to another one. I think if it's truly what you're trying to do, you're going to have to work it a little more than you used to in the older days. And you're just going to have to get out there. And being on winning teams help. Being on travel teams help. All those things, they're still the same. But you may even have to do more now because of the numbers is not in your advantage. The comparison to the quarterbacks, it's not in your advantage.
Sure. Well, I couldn't go this entire podcast without having a throwback story. You and I are the kings. Listen, our off the record conversations would be the best podcast I think in the world, which is one of my favorite things about our relationship. But let's go back to I was at Kennesaw State and you were at Clayton State a long time ago. Remember Georgie Joseph that played at Kennesaw State, played for Coach Engel?
Correct. Yeah, I remember Georgie.
Georgie was a beast. It was a motor man. It was a huge part of their run to the Division II national championship. His route to Kennesaw State was this simple, based on what you said. He did more. I remember Coach Engel telling me they got film of a kid on his high school team or maybe the kid that they were playing. And I remember that the staff was like, who's that? We need a guy that's a high energy guy, rim runner, rebounds, defends. Who's that guy? We want to know who that guy is. And that wasn't even the player that they were recruiting. And I know that happens all the time. I mean, have you had any instances on that in your career where, like, I went to go watch this guy, but I was so impressed because of what I needed on my team. I saw this other guy and we plugged him in.
Well, I actually got a great one the other day. I wouldn't have remembered it, but I just talked to Justin Newton about it, the head coach at Reinhardt. The year he was an assistant with me, I had sent him to recruit this kid in Albany, who I really liked. He was a big kid, and we really needed a big. And he brought him to work out, and he brought their point guard with him, who was kind of a combo 6'3" kid. And I signed a 6'3" kid. Loved him. And he ended up being a 2-year starter for us, and, you know, had a great, successful career. And we didn't even take the other kid. So, I mean, that was one where he just came in and he did so many good things. He was good at a lot of things. And, you know, he was kind of a Swiss Army knife.
Sure.
And it can go either way. What you said is right, too. If you're great at one thing, sometimes you stick out more. And then the other one might be true. If you're good at everything, you might stick out more, where maybe you're not great at anything, but you're good at everything. I think it can go both ways. You just never know who's watching. But I do know this. I do think the more you're out there working and the more you're out there being seen, the more chances you have. It doesn't always work that way, but it can. You know, it'll have
I think that's a really good way to kind of tie this all together, because it's really difficult from your point of view, building a roster. It's really difficult as a player that's in high school that you're just trying to figure out, like, there's so much. Listen, I have teenagers. I have kids at this very age. I have a senior in high school now. She doesn't play basketball, but like there is a pressure that's different now for an 18-year-old coming out of high school that there was when you and I were 18-year-olds back in the 1800s. You know,
no doubt.
It's definitely a different thing, and I think two things: treat everything like a job interview, because you never know. And like that assistant coach, like Justin Newton's a great example. Like, he was an assistant for you, but now he's a head coach at Reinhardt. And like 4 years later, that may, you know, materialize itself as an opportunity at that situation. And you never know, like, those contacts. And then two, man, I know this is cliche, I really do, but you got to be a little bit more patient. And it sucks to say that. And I know my 18-year-old daughter hates to hear that from me. Just be patient. Because everybody wants everything so quickly, but unfortunately, that is the nature of the game nowadays.
I would add to that. You know, I'm a South Atlanta guy now in South Georgia, and I had to learn patience real fast down here when you get behind the log truck or the tractor on the 2-lane road and you can't pass it. You know, in Atlanta, you just run them off the road and keep going. But you know, I've had to learn patience in that aspect. But also, I would add one more thing other than patience. I think attention to detail and being able to not be the cool guy. And I know a lot of kids out there, a lot of times they're impressing, and I don't mean to sound like the old man on the porch, but they're impressing their peers instead of impressing who's going to give them and offer them a scholarship. And sometimes, you know, playing hard and doing some of those old school things, those are skills now. Coaches look for those now, whereas maybe in mine and your days, everybody kind of did that. So they say. We don't have internet proof, so we get away with it and we can say it. But it is a skill now. It is a skill. Playing hard, trying hard, being competitive, upset when you lose, but still being representable and classy. Those things are important, man, because a lot of people don't have them anymore, unfortunately, without being old.
I don't know a bank in the country you can walk into and say, "Hey, here's my clout check. I want to cash it." And they're gonna look at it. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. There's the door. You can't get any currency out of that one. So I think that's a really good place to kind of call it. Cory, this has been really good. And I hope if you're a parent, if you watched, you know, 30 minutes of this, that you've learned something from this, you've gleaned something from this. What we're trying to do is really help educate, and especially now where it's a different recruiting model. And I want to make sure that we're putting things out there from the people that make the decisions. And again, Cory has a vast experience at a lot of different levels and had success. Again, 98 players moved on to 4-year schools during your time at South Georgia State, 117. So you've got some experience of taking a patient road. And I think that goes a long way for helping people out. So, Cory, this has been good, man. I really appreciate you taking the time with me, man.
Hey, man, I really appreciate you having me on. And, you know, you're a patient guy, too. People don't realize some of the hard work you did in some of those gyms that people don't even know exist. And now, you know, to be running and having good guests on and then bad ones like me, you can filter through and have them all. We really appreciate you and love what you do and helping people out, man.
Well, I appreciate that. If you've watched this, if you're watching this, share this with somebody. Share this with a player. Share this with a coach. Share this with, somebody that maybe is trying to look for some education or like a real conversation. So hopefully you do that. Hit the like button, subscribe to all the things the kids tell you to do. Anyways, but until next time, I'm Justin Young. He's Cory Baldwin. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you guys in the gym. Take care.